Maybe try secretarial work, David Thornton suggested across the conference table, his voice dripping with condescension as he addressed me in front of the entire executive team. Less stressful for someone like you. I smiled politely and continued taking notes on my laptop while 20 pairs of eyes watched to see if I'd crack under his casual cruelty. What David didn't know, what none of them knew except the CEO himself, was that my notes were actually the final revisions to the restructuring proposal that would eliminate David's position entirely and install me as the new chief operating officer. Someone like me? I asked mildly, fingers still typing. What do you mean by that, David? He leaned back in his chair, the picture of middle-aged white male confidence in his Brooks Brothers suit that was just slightly too tight around his expanding middle. Come on, Victoria. You're a smart woman, but executive leadership requires a certain fortitude. The pressure, the long hours, the tough decisions. He spread his hands like he was being reasonable. It's not personal. It's just biology. Women are more emotional, more prone to stress. Stats show it. What stats specifically? I kept my voice neutral, professional. You know, the studies. Everyone knows this stuff. He waved dismissively. Look, I'm not saying you're not valuable. You're great at operations, detail work, keeping things organized. But strategic leadership? C-suite pressure? He shook his head. That's a different game. I glanced around the table. Tom from finance looked uncomfortable. Sarah from legal was typing furiously, probably documenting every word. Mike from sales was nodding along with David like a trained seal. The others studied their coffee cups like they contained the secrets of the universe. Interesting perspective, I said, closing my laptop. For the record, I'd like to note that in the 18 months I've been Director of Operations, departmental efficiency has increased by 43%, employee retention is up 31%, and we've cut operational costs by $2.7 million while improving output. Exactly. David jumped on it. You're amazing at operations. Stick with what you're good at. Leave the big picture stuff to people who can handle it. People like you? Well, I've been COO for 8 years. I think my track record speaks for itself. It did speak for itself. Just not the way he thought. The conference room door opened, and everyone straightened in their seats. Martin Blackwell, our 62-year-old CEO, walked in with his assistant Jenny and someone I didn't recognize, a severe-looking woman in her 50s carrying a leather portfolio. Sorry I'm late, Martin said, his voice carrying that quiet authority that made people listen. Please, everyone stay seated. We have some announcements to make. David perked up. He'd been angling for a promotion for months, convinced that the company was creating a new executive vice president position. He'd told anyone who would listen that he was a shoo-in. First, Martin continued, I'd like to introduce Margaret Winters from HR. She'll be sitting in on the remainder of this meeting. The HR director. My heart rate kicked up slightly, but I kept my expression neutral. This was it. As you all know, Blackwell Industries has been undergoing a strategic review over the past quarter. We've analyzed every department, every position, every aspect of our operations. Martin's eyes swept the room. The goal was to position us for the next phase of growth and ensure we have the right leadership in place. David sat up straighter, practically vibrating with anticipation. The board and I have made several decisions, Martin continued. First, we're restructuring the C-suite. The COO position, as it currently exists, is being eliminated. The room erupted in murmurs. David's face went slack with shock. However, Martin raised his voice slightly. We're creating a new position, Chief Operating Officer and Executive Vice President of Strategy. This role will oversee all operational functions, strategic planning, and will serve as second-in-command to me. David was already half standing, ready to accept what he thought was his promotion with a new title. Victoria Martinez, Martin said, looking directly at me. Effective immediately, you are promoted to COO and EVP of Strategy. Congratulations. The silence was deafening. I stood slowly, my legs steadier than I expected. Thank you, Martin. I'm honored by the board's confidence in me. Your work speaks for itself, he said, shaking my hand. Then he turned to David, who looked like he'd been hit with a 2x4. David, Margaret will need to speak with you privately. If you could gather your things and meet her in conference room B? Wait, what? David's voice cracked. What about my position? Your position is being eliminated, as I just explained, Martin said, his tone becoming cooler. You'll receive a full severance package, of course. HR will go over the details. You can't be serious. David looked around the table wildly, seeking allies. I've been here 8 years. I built this department. Actually, I said quietly, pulling up a file on my laptop and projecting it onto the screen, you've been here 8 years and departmental efficiency has declined by 22% during your tenure. Employee turnover increased by 47%. Operational costs ballooned by $4.3 million while output remained flat. The screen filled with charts, graphs, and data, months of analysis I'd been conducting as part of the strategic review. Additionally, I continued, my voice steady, we've documented 17 instances of gender-based discrimination in your management practices. 12 formal complaints filed with HR that were never properly investigated. And 6 instances of potential Title VII violations. David's face went from red to white. Those were all misunderstandings, were they? Margaret Winters spoke for the first time, her voice crisp. Including the time you told Jennifer Lopez, no relation to the singer, as she always has to clarify, that she should smile more during her performance review? Or when you passed over 3 qualified female candidates for promotion in favor of less qualified men? Or perhaps the comment you made last month suggesting that Amanda Torres was too pretty to be taken seriously as a project manager? I never, those were taken out of context. It's all documented, I said. Emails, meeting notes, witness statements. As part of my operational review, I also conducted a thorough HR audit. Standard procedure when analyzing departmental efficiency. I clicked to the next slide. The data showed that your management style wasn't just offensive, it was expensive. Employee turnover in your direct reports is triple the company average. That's a cost of approximately $780,000 annually in recruitment, training, and lost productivity. Tom from finance let out a low whistle. So you've been spying on me, David spat. Building a case to steal my job. I was conducting the review Martin and the board requested, I corrected. Your job performance and management practices were part of that review. The data led where it led. This is unbelievable, David stood, grabbing his phone. My lawyer will hear about this. This is wrongful termination. Actually, it's not, Sarah from legal interjected, speaking up for the first time. I've reviewed all the documentation. The termination is for legitimate business reasons, performance issues and violation of company policies. Everything is well documented and legally sound. David, Margaret said firmly, we need to have this conversation in private. Now. He looked at me, and I saw it, the moment the reality truly hit him. The woman he'd just told to try secretarial work was now his superior. The person conducting his exit interview. Actually, Martin said, per company policy, exit interviews for C-suite positions are conducted by their direct superior or equivalent. That would be Victoria now. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. David's mouth opened and closed like a fish. You're kidding. I don't kid about personnel matters, Martin said. Victoria will conduct the exit interview this afternoon. 2:00. Margaret will be present as well, naturally. As David followed Margaret out of the conference room, walking past me like I was something that might bite, I heard him mutter under his breath, this is what happens when you let them play at being executives. I let it slide. I had bigger fish to fry. All right, Martin said once the door closed. Now that that's handled, let's discuss the restructuring plan. Victoria, you want to walk everyone through the changes? For the next hour, I presented the strategic plan I'd been developing, department consolidations, new reporting structures, efficiency improvements, and a complete overhaul of the company culture to prioritize merit over tenure and results over politics. When I finished, Tom spoke up. This is impressive work. How long have you been working on this? 6 months. Martin approached me about the COO position back in March, contingent on developing a comprehensive operational strategy. 6 months, Mike from sales repeated, looking stunned. You've been preparing for this for 6 months and never said anything? Why would I? It wasn't confirmed until today. I looked at him directly. Also, Mike, you're going to want to review your expense reports from the past year. There are some discrepancies that need addressing. We can discuss it after this meeting. His face paled. Message received, the new sheriff in town actually read the reports. The meeting wrapped up 20 minutes later. As people filed out, Sarah from legal lingered. That was masterful, she said quietly. The way you laid it all out with data, no emotion, just facts. Thanks. Though between you and me, I wanted to throw my laptop at his head. She laughed, the irony of him telling you to try secretarial work right before finding out you were his new boss? Chef's kiss. She made the gesture. How does it feel? Ask me after the exit interview. 2:00 came faster than I expected. I'd spent the intervening hours fielding congratulations from colleagues, reviewing the severance package with HR, and mentally preparing for what was sure to be an uncomfortable conversation. David sat in conference room B looking smaller somehow, like his suit had grown 2 sizes. Margaret sat beside him, a stack of papers in front of her. I took my seat across from them, setting down my tablet and a folder. David, I began, keeping my tone professional, this is your exit interview as required by company policy. Margaret is here as a witness and to review your severance package. Do you understand? I understand that you stabbed me in the back, he said bitterly. I'm going to pretend you didn't say that, I replied calmly. Let's review the terms of your departure. You'll receive 6 months' salary as severance, continuation of health benefits for 12 months, and a neutral reference for future employment. In exchange, you'll sign a separation agreement that includes a non-disparagement clause and waiver of legal claims. 6 months? I've been here 8 years. The severance is calculated based on company policy, 1 month for every 2 years of service, plus an additional 2 months as a courtesy. I slid the paper across. It's generous considering the documentation of policy violations. He stared at the paper like it might burst into flames. What if I don't sign? Then you get the minimum required by law, 2 weeks' pay, and we proceed without the non-disparagement clause. Which means the 17 documented instances of gender discrimination become part of your permanent employment record, available to anyone who calls for a reference. I leaned back. Your choice. Margaret added, I should mention that 3 former employees have already expressed interest in filing formal complaints if they learn the company is taking action. The non-disparagement clause protects both parties. David's jaw worked. Fine. Where do I sign? As he scrawled his signature, I felt a mix of emotions, satisfaction, certainly, but also something like pity. This man had spent 8 years building nothing but resentment and inefficiency. David, I said as he stood to leave, can I give you some advice? Off the record. He paused, surprised. The world is changing. Companies can't afford to lose talent because of outdated biases. The data doesn't lie, diverse leadership teams perform better, period. You could have been part of that evolution, but you chose to fight it instead. I stood as well. Maybe try seeing people as people, not categories. You might be surprised what you learn. He looked at me for a long moment. You really think you're better than me? No, I said honestly. I think I work harder than you did, I treat people better than you did, and I deliver better results than you did. Better isn't about inherent worth, it's about choices and effort. He left without another word. Margaret started packing up her papers. You handled that well. Very professional. Thanks. Though I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy it a little. She smiled. Good. You should enjoy it. You earned this position. She paused at the door. For what it's worth, I'm glad Martin finally pulled the trigger on this. David's behavior has been an HR nightmare for years. We've been building a case but never had the executive support to act on it. Why not? Because he was the CEO's college roommate's son. Martin felt obligated to give him chances. Too many chances. She shrugged. But when you presented your findings with that level of documentation, even that relationship couldn't save him. After she left, I sat alone in the conference room for a few minutes, letting it all sink in. Chief Operating Officer. Second in command of a mid-sized tech company with 800 employees and $200 million in annual revenue. My phone buzzed. A text from my mom. How did the big announcement go, Mija? I smiled. My mother, who'd immigrated from El Salvador at 19, who'd worked 3 jobs to put me through state college, who'd never understood what I did for a living but supported me anyway. I got the promotion, mama. Cool. The boss. Que bueno. I knew you would. When do I get to tell Mrs. Rodriguez that my daughter is a big executive? Right now if you want. 3 dots appeared, then, already calling her. She's going to die. Her son is still in sales at the car dealership. Love you, Mija. So proud. I laughed, packing up my things. Walking back to my office, soon to be relocated to the executive floor, I passed the cubicles where I started 6 years ago as a junior analyst. Fresh out of business school, $80,000 in student loans, wearing a Target suit and shoes that pinched. Amanda Torres, the project manager David had called too pretty to be taken seriously, stopped me in the hallway. Is it true? She asked. You're the new COO? It's true. And David's gone? As of today. She hugged me suddenly, fiercely. When she pulled back, there were tears in her eyes. Thank you. You don't know what it means to see someone like you in that position. To know that maybe the rest of us have a chance too. You do have a chance, I said firmly. More than a chance. And anyone who tells you different is lying to protect their own mediocrity. Back in my office, I found a bottle of champagne on my desk with a note from Martin, welcome to the C-suite. Now the real work begins. He wasn't wrong. Being COO meant longer hours, harder decisions, and a whole new level of scrutiny. It meant proving every day that I deserved this position, that my gender wasn't a liability but an asset. But as I looked out my window at the city skyline, at the company I was now helping lead, I thought about David's comment that morning. Maybe try secretarial work. Less stressful. I pulled out my phone and drafted an email to all staff, subject, leadership changes. Dear colleagues, I'm honored to announce that I've been promoted to Chief Operating Officer and Executive Vice President of Strategy. I look forward to working with all of you to build on our successes and meet our challenges head-on. My door is always open. My commitment is to lead with integrity, transparency, and data-driven decision-making. I believe in the talent and potential of every person in this organization, regardless of gender, background, or position. Let's do great things together. Victoria Martinez, COO and EVP of Strategy. I hit send and watched the email go out to 800 people. My phone immediately started buzzing with replies, but one stood out. From Jennifer in accounting, does this mean we can finally report issues without fear? Because I have a list. I typed back, Conference Room C, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Bring your list and anyone else who has one. Time to clean house. Because that was the thing about breaking glass ceilings, you had to sweep up the shards and make sure no one else cut themselves on the same broken system. My office phone rang. Martin. Congratulations again, he said. How did the exit interview go? Professionally awkward, but completed. Good. Listen, the board wants to meet with you next week. They want to hear your 90-day plan. Already drafted. I'll send it over tomorrow. He chuckled. You know, when I first suggested you for this position, 3 board members said you were too young, too inexperienced, too, well, you know. Too female? They didn't say it that way, but yes. I told them to look at the data. That's all that matters, the data and results. And now? Now they're eating crow and pretending they supported you all along. He paused. Victoria, you're going to face a lot of David Thorntons in your career. Men who think executive leadership is a boys' club, that women can't handle the pressure. Prove them wrong every single day. I intend to. After we hung up, I sat in my chair, soon to be a bigger chair on a higher floor, and thought about that morning's meeting. David suggesting secretarial work like it was a kindness, like he was protecting me from the stress of leadership. What he didn't understand, what men like him never understood, was that women like me had been handling pressure our entire lives. The pressure of being underestimated. The pressure of working twice as hard for half the recognition. The pressure of watching less qualified men get promoted while we waited our turn. That wasn't weakness. That was preparation. I pulled up my calendar and started planning. 90 days to prove myself. To show the board, the staff, the industry that I wasn't just qualified for this position, I was the best person for it. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from an unknown number, congratulations on the promotion. You earned it. David, I stared at it for a moment, surprised. Maybe people could change after all. Or maybe he'd just signed the text to check a box on his exit paperwork. Either way, it didn't matter. I had work to do. And for the first time in my career, I had the position and the power to actually do it.